So tell me about yourself. How would you answer that question in an interview? My name is Joshua, and I'll be teaching you how to answer that question of tell me about yourself. You can take a screenshot of this and feel free to stick around if you don't understand what any of these mean. But before I start, let's grab some tea and sip with me. Good stuff. Cheers. Anyways, let's get right to it. So these are the three elements that you have to consider when you want to practice how to answer this question of tell me about yourself. The first one is you want to craft your hero's journey. That's what your answer should be. Of course, in short means, tell a good story. But we tend to forget what does that mean. What are the elements that make a great story? So first, you should start off in the beginning of your answer with your origin, but it should also end to something that can connect with the audience at the end. Throughout this whole part, it should be kind of focused in a way that the audience can empathize or relate to when you give that answer. So if you're applying for a job, make sure that the details of your story, including the origin a little bit, is kind of tailored to something the audience can connect with or feels that is needed, that they want that sort of hero in their company. So let's just give an example right there, actually. So let's just say you're applying to be a mobile app developer. So maybe the origin of your story is that you noticed that you were born as a millennial and you never had a smartphone. But when you see the smartphone, you had this sudden urge to feel like, wow, I have so much power right here that I can create something magical with just one click of a button. And I felt the urgency or the need to create some sort of app that can benefit others and some other need right here. That's what got me into mobile app development. That's not really a clear-cut answer. I kind of did it impromptu, but you kind of know what I mean. Just make your answer as good as that one. There should be obstacles or exposing your vulnerability. So what are the elements of a good story? I mean, you've watched many good movies. If the character's always perfect, the story gets boring or doesn't feel authentic or something that's easy to connect with. For example, if you watch Superman movies, he's nearly invincible except for kryptonite, but throughout the whole story, you never felt any problem or anything interesting about it. Well, how I feel, most of my people that I talk to, they don't think Superman is an interesting hero because he's practically invincible. But having the sense of danger or something that is an obstacle that even your audiences face themselves, let's just say you have to release an app within 2 weeks, but there's so much confusion how to break down how to develop this app. Maybe you could say you yourself, you had an app that you want to publish at a Play Store for your school project within 2 weeks, but you didn't know what to do. But, you decided what are the 80% most important features, for example, logging in to the phone, dealing with authentication, the data, how is it stored in different database clouds, like Amazon Web Services or something like that. And where do you deploy it in the Play Store, making sure it follows those Play Store requirements. And once you master those, well, maybe that's not a good, but yeah, I guess let's just go on to the next one. Make sure it's memorable. Of course, you want to make sure you add specificity to the elements of your story so that it will be memorable by your audience. If you just give basic concepts like the other candidates will, your story will be forgettable. But if you include something like, let's just say I made a mobile app that will help zookeepers determine how many stripes a zebra has, that's pretty specific, and I'm pretty sure that when the interviewers are talking with the others and see which candidates are memorable, they'll definitely remember the guy who created an app that counted the number of stripes in a zebra. Or for my case, what it say in my first job, I told them I made an Android app that helps an Android app for a medical device center that can help create measurements for the nasal area for nose surgery. That's pretty specific, and they can distinguish me out as the guy who made an app for nose surgery. Something memorable like that. And also throughout the story, when people are excuse me, When people are interviewing candidates, they want to see if they are fit for their culture or culture or company values. And in that case, of course, within your 2-3 minutes, you have to make sure the virtues or the virtues that you have in your story, they can be communicated out without you saying it directly, but they also align with what the company or job needs. For example, let's just say you are a great communicator and you were able to communicate a message to reach 10,000 people on Instagram or Twitter, and they were able to perform something, sign a petition or anything like that, and you're able to create some sort of action that can enable some local community or government action that help change an event, maybe save some platypuses or something. See, there's a virtue to that. If you tell a story like that, it demonstrates leadership, effectiveness of communication to large audiences, and your ability to empathize and relate to others so that they'll be able to follow your cause. You are, conscientious of your community, of the people around you, and you're able to ask questions in a way like, you'll find out what people care about most in your community. Stuff like that, communication. I think I've already mentioned that twice. But anyways, yeah, you should be able to communicate such virtues in your 2 to 3 minute story of your hero's journey. And also, although you want to make a good story, make sure you shorten it to 2 to 3 minutes. You'd be surprised that you could tell a story quite quickly and concisely, but sometimes we think that a long story is really good with all these details, and you could overload the interviewer. So in the case that you're like, oh, there's all these good things about him. But if you put too much information, you could also be kind of forgettable in a way. If you shorten it to 2-3 minutes, it allows the audience to ask follow-up questions, almost engage with your story, like, oh, really, what happened here? Or can you tell us more about there? It allows interactability with the audience. If you shorten it to 2 to 3 minutes, it allows them to ask questions about that. Whereas if you just continue on with the story, the interviewer might get the impression that you don't want to, that they're just disengaged with your story in a way, and they might think that you're not maybe conscientious of allowing you to answer, and they won't be able to answer their own questions, that they could gauge whether your heroism is aligned with what the company is looking for. Finally, the last thing you want to consider is you want to practice storytelling. Some important elements of storytelling are you want to be able to pace and lead the audience. For example, you might be thinking, wait, hold for a second. So sometimes in your story, one of the great elements or great ways to make sure you're pacing and leading the audience is, for example, I'll be saying like, okay, guys, so I was told by my teacher that I have to create a mobile app in 2 days. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's nearly impossible. How can you create a mobile app in 2 days without any prior experience with this tool and that tool? You see what I did there? So right there, I told them, like, no, you know what? I know what you're thinking. So right there, you're able to communicate to the audience, like, I am able to tell them that I can almost feel what they're feeling. But with this feeling that we have, I know that I could take you over here because I have a plan and action what to do. If you do that, the audience will be much more able to relate or to feel connected with that person. Now, tonality. What do I mean by that? Hopefully I got the right word for what that means, because I'm talking about like volume. See, if you talk monotonously, like, okay, guys, here's my 3 facts, and here's how you do this. You see how boring that becomes? You have to be able to add some sort of dynamicness when you talk about something. You should be able to say like, oh, practice storytelling, or, okay, guys, the first thing you want to do is craft your hero's journey. See, it's engaging if you're able to change the way you discuss or tell a story of something to the interviewer. And also, importantly, I don't know if it's in your company too, but as an interviewer, when I talk to other interviewers as well, the things they want to engage with the person's answer is they have some sort of enthusiasm for the company they're interviewing with. If they act as if they're talking as a script, they would disregard you in a way because they're like, you know what, he's probably done this many times before and he's just choosing us because we're just there. It doesn't really value the company's mission. And usually the good companies want to gauge whether you have the grit, enthusiasm to join the company, because they want to know if your enthusiasm and energy, you want to invest in the company. Usually they could carry out to if you want to learn new things, learn more about the company's architecture and tools to make it better, or their audience and see how they can expand it, stuff like that. You want to make sure that you have a good energy when you discuss your story. Another one right here is words. You need to include words that spark a feeling in your story. It has to be appropriate too. You can't just like say words that are kind of naughty or kind of cruel that it could be an immediate turnoff where the interviewer like, whoa, way too far, bro, way too far. Or girl, bro or girl. Or I don't know what is another pronoun. Sorry about that. But anyways, so maybe I should give an example. I didn't craft my story ahead of time, so I kind of failed that list. But can I craft if someone had asked me, tell me about yourself, Joshua, what would I say? Let's just say I'll be applying to my first job. So here's how it would go, going over only these 2 points technically. I didn't even practice it. So let's see. I graduated from the University of Minnesota as a biomedical engineer. Now I know what you're thinking. I'm a biomedical engineer, but why do you want to be applying to a test engineer or software engineering position? Well, I also had a minor in computer science. I had a minor because I was thinking that if I went to biomedical engineering with a computer science minor, I'll be able to be engaging with technology that can scale quickly, whereas the other technologies in the biomedical engineering industry move slowly. So I partake in different projects, such as working with Android app development to develop an app that can measure the nose for several patients undergoing nose surgery. I did this from a medical device center company. Also, I was part of a neuroscience lab where I created a program that can measure the mice's brain's reactions when they shoot lasers into the brain of the mice to see if they can heal quickly from epilepsy or seizures. With this sort of experience, I was able to use this to dive into other technologies and expose myself into different tools and frameworks like Java, C++, and also Android, where I feel like I can create the tools and frameworks that your company needs to for the job. Okay, that was kind of bad, but you notice like here's some things I could tell you, like origin. I told you where I started. I started as a biomedical engineer. Right away, though, it doesn't engage the audience because you're like, what? Biomedical? But it doesn't really relate to the computer science stuff that you're applying to. A little bit, but not too much. Then I say, I know what you're thinking. I try to pace and lead them right there. And I told them, but I had a computer science minor. They're like, oh, okay, I think I have an idea that maybe you might have some familiarity with it. Some obstacles and vulnerability. I didn't go over that one too well. But memorable. I told them that I work with mice with epilepsy and seizures and shoot lasers in their brain. So I use words that spark some sort of weird interest, like, oh, lasers that shoot into their brain. That's interesting, You can't really forget something like that. Or, I work with an app that deals with people with nose surgeries. That's kind of memorable too, in a way. But also the virtues of that, well, some virtues that I'm communicating with that is that I'm a person that I am not narrow or just focused specifically in my field, but I'm willing to try different technologies. Because I was a biomedical engineer, but I did a computer science minor. I work in a neuroscience lab, and I also work with making an app for nose surgeries. You see that I was exposing myself to different fields. So that sort of puts a sort of adventurous vibe around me, an exploratorious vibe around me for the technology that I look into. And I shortened it to 2 or 3 minutes, but that's because I wasn't really well prepared with my opening speech and how to do stuff like that. How to create a tell me about yourself story. Maybe I'll call this version 0.5. This video says 0.5 because if I really prepare a better speech of how to answer, tell me about yourself, I think I'll give a better example that you guys can go through. But anyways, just take a screenshot again. Hope this helps, guys. It helped me get my first job and the following jobs after that. Yeah, so keep me posted and take care.